started.
Tonight versus Jay Bennett. Tonight from the U.S. Okay. So let's see. Against E4, I played the French, the Ruy, the Sicilian. I could try the Scandinavian myself. Yet another way to play against E4. Yep, taking is good. Then just gathering up the pawn. It's probably better just to continue developing with d4 there. There's no point to this exchange from white's point of view, and black is probably close to equal now without this knight here to harass the queen. Queen could go here with check and pick up the rook. This will be a short game.
Check.
A short game. Gotta be careful when your opponent's pieces are out.
White resigns.
Yeah, there was nothing there. Okay, I'm going to get another game.
Incoming challenge.
Okay.
Game started.
He wants to play again. Let's see. I played E4 recently, but let's try it again. There's a lot of different responses to E4. Maybe we'll get a different line. Okay, E4, E5. Classical response. And how about the Ruy Lopez? Okay, yeah, knight g7 is an interesting way to play against the Ruy. So if you take, he takes back with the knight. But he's not putting any pressure on the e-pawn. So you can castle and go ahead with c3 and d4. And you don't even have to move your rook to e1. Now, you do have to be careful if there's a trick. The knight coming here, attacking the bishop. But I don't see any tricks. So the bishop gets to this good square. So I think this is basically just a better version. He decides to open up. That's not a bad idea. When you're black and white is playing the Ruy, he sometimes wastes a lot of tempi, moving his pieces around, and so opening it up can work to black's advantage. In this case, I think, though, my development is fine, right? I've got 2 pieces out, and I've castled, and he's got 3 pieces out. And he's a couple moves away from castling. And his bishop is blocked. So, okay, so, but that's general considerations. Let's see. In practice, he just undefended his e-pawn, so I can take it. Yeah, and he pins the knight. Let's see. Oh, he can just take that with the bishop. I was thinking, I could just push this pawn ahead, and if he takes with the pawn, it kind of messes up his king side. But since that doesn't, he could just take with the bishop, so that doesn't look so great. So I'm going to defend the pawn. The knight was pinned, and I wasn't worried about that because the bishop can take there. He can trade queens. It looks like I'm holding on to my pawn somehow. Okay, so I don't want to, I mean, I could just trade rooks there. How does he retake? He retakes with either the knight or the king. Yeah, I suppose that's good.
Check.
Then I can develop a knight. And all my bits are defended. I'm a pawn up. And my pieces are developed, and he still hasn't castled. Although with queens out, not so much of an issue anymore. He's going after my bishop. The knight's no longer pinned, so this pawn is doubly defended now. Let's see. So what are there any attacking ideas here? Maybe maybe trapping the bishop. Okay, so he's going after my e-pawn. Let's develop a rook. Get all my pieces in the game. Ah, and he castles. So this is a weak pawn here, the c pawn. And he could just play c5. I kind of want to move this knight out of the way, maybe play f4. So how about here? This pawn is momentarily, it's sufficiently defended because it's only attacked once and defended once. So with the bishop pair and an extra pawn, I should be in good shape in this game, as long as I'm not suffering some structural deficiency, and I don't see it here. So I could just take his knight, if he allows it. He harasses my bishop instead. Okay. Let's go here and harass his pawns. Harass his queenside pawns. He can go here. The bishop's defending it. After I take, he can go here. Going after my dark squared bishop. Okay, this is interesting. He opens up a diagonal to his king by doing that. But he does trade off my advanced pawn. And he develops the rook. Yeah, it's interesting because I was just thinking about how about knight to e3 there, or knight to c3, but that's no longer possible. Okay, maybe rerouting this knight and keeping an eye on the keeping an eye on this e4 square, because that knight might drop in there and the bishop is still protecting it. So the knight might go to c5 here. There we go with the bishop, with the knight, I mean. So when he moved that knight, he opened up, actually this square was open already, wasn't it? Bishop e5, just trading off his good bishop there. He can actually attack my bishop. Yeah. So now if I take his bishop, he can take mine, and then I can retreat. Or he can take this bishop, and I can retreat the other one. Let's see, do I have time for check? I could defend the bishop with a knight move, which sometimes it's a bad idea, because if the knight gets undermined, then you lose two pieces. But potentially lose 2 pieces. But I don't see a good undermining move against the knight, and I am threatening to take on a6 there. He could just push the pawn to a5. I'm not sure why he's thinking so hard. Is this knight going to get trapped or something? Rook. Is the rook going to get trapped? I don't know. He went there, so this allows a trade. And then the knight goes after the bishop, but the bishop can escape. Or if he takes with the pawn, maybe that's his idea, taking with the pawn. Okay, so now I have to move the knight. Now if I take here, that seems safe. Pick up another pawn. Okay, his king is getting active, so this is interesting. An active king is worth a lot in the end game. So let's not let's not let him have the whole board to himself. Pawn and the bishop cover those squares. He can come in this way. I have to be careful about checks here, here. Yeah, he's blocking the bishop. Okay, so bring the knight in. Get the knight in the game. And put some pressure on that pawn. But yeah, he's going to move forward. Okay, so let's check first.
Check.
Drives the king back. And then I can play g4 here, hitting this knight. The checking squares are covered. Where can I go? Here, here, here. You can go there. Here, here, here. So, and if he ignores it and takes, I can take back, and I'm still okay. So if that knight moves away, then I can grab this pawn. And notice it's interesting how the knight and the bishop combine to form a barrier that keeps the king out. So the knight controls these 2 squares, and the bishop controls that one. It's very handy the way these 2 pieces can coordinate in the endgame. He could, other options could be, he could move his king to attack my bishop. But I think I could just retreat it safely to this square. Yeah, this pawn over here is hanging, speaking of retreating to this square. So, okay, so I take here, he takes there. Hadn't noticed that before. So what's better? Is it better to defend? I think it's better to take here. Gives me a passed pawn, and if he wants to take here, I'll have to allow that. Yep. So now the knight can go to these squares. That one is a check. And that one is covered by my knight. Okay. So let's try and get one of these pawns passed and avoid losing a piece to a check. So maybe king up. Just so wherever that knight moves, it's not going to be a with check. And I'm defending this pawn. And then I'm going to try and push these outside pawns over here and hold back these pawns. So yeah, and play this move, and if he pushes forward I can take it, so, and then I'm going to follow up, so I play b3 and then a4, and that'll give me a runner over here on the queen side. And this bishop is keeping this knight from moving further towards the queen side. His only squares are back in this direction. So 2 pawns up, should be a winning endgame, but I say you got to play the endgames pretty carefully. You don't want to rush into things. Oh, yeah, that's just a mistake. I can take that. He takes back with check. I take the pawn. His king still can't come forward. Yeah, this is just not good for black.
Check.
My pawn now is cooperating with the bishop to keep his king out. So I can still play a4 here and bring that pawn forward. And now I have another passed pawn over on the king side. Potential, yeah, this is a passed pawn. It's just way back. Got to push your passed pawns. That's the next step. Yeah, actually in this position he could have played pawn to b4. My knight's no longer there, stopping it, and then that one pawn would be holding these 2 pawns back. Would be better for black than what he played. It's kind of a neat trick in the endgame. Sometimes you can be down a pawn, but if you have one pawn that holds back 2, that can be worth it. You can have the advantage even. Yeah, so I can just keep pushing this. His knight can't really get any closer, and his king is just about outside the square. His king has to move inside the square now if he wants to. Yeah. Yeah, so now I can start marching these other pawns. That's why it's good to have more than one pawn extra in an endgame. Once one of them has been used up, you can start marching the others.
Check.
When it's been pushed ahead as far as it can go. I'm just moving my king where the knight doesn't have any immediate checks. So the threat is to push ahead this pawn, check. If he takes it, then I push in queen. If he goes back, then I just push ahead with check again. Actually, he can't even go back.
Check.
I can stop it with the knight there. King has to go to b8, yeah. And then I can start running this pawn. I don't want his knight to take a pawn there, so...
Check.
Yes, I forgot about the check. It doesn't matter because I have enough pawns here. Still, sloppy play.
Check.
Okay, I probably could have just pushed this pawn when his knight started adventuring. I mean, how is he going to stop it now? The king goes here, and I'll just push the other pawn. One of them will get through.
Black resigns.
Okay, well, interesting
Incoming
game, and I
challenge.
won't accept another challenge, but you get 2 games for the price of 1 in this video, and I will do a postmortem. See you guys later. Bye.